All right, we are live. So thank you very much. We are kicking off 1 year ago. Can you believe it? We started with the NDILC principles a year ago this month. And to think that we've gone full circle has been unbelievable. So the idea is that what we're going to talk about is that we're going to go kick it back off to acknowledge Trailblazers. We started off with 10, we went up to 12. And one of the reasons we did is that we needed to make sure that we continue the synergies that happen between all of us as we get together and have a common thread for women's leadership. So thank you everyone for joining us in the incredible year of what we've gone through and continue to go through with the projections of the complexity of life that we go through. And this year, what we're going to do is our second anniversary, we're going to start off and we're going to add the value of books. And some of you are phenomenal readers that love to read every day and read books and books and books. And you're talking to me, Desiree, your host for Acknowledge Trailblazers. Unfortunately, Erica can't join us today. But the idea is that I love to read stories, but short stories. I love to read an article. I don't like to read books because they take so long to complete the project. So you forced me to read something as fast as I could to get on this call. So I'm very excited about it. But the cool thing about it is as I was reading it last night, I really fell in love learning and understanding someone more in depth than just reading a glimpse of what was going into someone's life. So that is exciting here. So we're going to start it off. And what I really wanted to talk about today is that acknowledging Trailblazers can take so many different ways and so many different channels and what we can really amplify to go with it. So I'm going to turn this into a little bit of a game. And the game is going to be is that I want everyone to guess who the person is that I'm describing that is the Trailblazer for today. So my person she's a redhead. And if I tell you too much about her, you're going to guess her right away. But she's a redhead and her mother was named Desiree and it was spelled just like mine. And I found that, I'm sorry?
Lucille Ball.
You're absolutely right.
Wow, that's great.
That's because I love Lucille Ball. She's one of my favorite people to read about. What a story. What a story she is.
Well, yeah. So the coolest thing about her is that, so you, this is unbelievable. I'm sorry. I just took my mind. So one of the things that's so incredible about Lucille Ball is that if you think about her two things, she came from radio, B-story movies, became the most loved actor in our history. And if you think about the fact that, what did she bring to the table? Her marriage problems. How to deal raising in the workforce as a woman, how to deal with the fact is that here she's working, having children, and she was the very first person to ever run as a female to run a production studio and own a production studio. So if you think about what we're going through right now, the fact is gender pay, women having a voice, women running a company, women being able to be successful in all that aspects. To me, and then to be vulnerable and showcase. Remember, this is the 60s, the year I was born. So there's a lot of synergies here that went down to it. But not only in 1960, but when they started the production, within 2 years, she bought out her husband to be a sole owner of the production thing. So if you think about her marriage, how it went through and what she was doing, and she brought it to light, and she had to deal with the constant friction on the story set on her husband flirting with everyone, and she still had to work with him, and then also to go through that whole process and still be successful on it. That is such an emotional level to get that out there. And here we are 6 years later, still, debating on all the different things. And most importantly, in the movie industry, look what we're still searching to make sure, like Gina Davis has got that program for making sure women have enough airtime and how many voices and how many words are being said on the movie theater. So that is my highlight, the woman that I bring to the table. And so I'd like to go, so that's just an introduction. We'll go on some deeper questions. But okay, so then the next one is Tammy.
Desiree, before you go, what's the name of the book?
I Love Lucy. Sorry, that was my bizarre. I was so excited.
I Love Lucy? Or
no, it's called Love Lucy.
It is
Love Lucy. And the thing that's so incredible about the book is that was written in 1986, and she started the autobiography of it, but she paused for several years because she says, my life, it means so much more after. I did not want to dismiss of what's going to happen after I write the book. So I'm going to pause it because there's so much more for me to live. And what an inspiration that she didn't want to write the autobiography because of the movie industry. She wanted to do it because of her life. And she happened to finish it. And so her daughter actually wrote the foreword to her book and allowed it to be published and go through because her mom stepped in, Lucy stepped in to finish the autobiography to her own thing. So it was very cool. But yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, I happen to, like I said, love Lucille Ball, and I've read almost everything on her. There's actually, I think they're going to do a movie on that book, Desiree, because it's her story. You were talking about all the things that are still wrong, but what I find wonderful about her story is what she achieved despite all the things that were going on. She never allowed that to stop her. And she never allowed, when you really think of trailblazers and acknowledging, oh my gosh, like you said, what a trailblazer she was in so many ways.
Well, the thing that was so interesting about her is that from me is that some of her quotes that I pulled out were very interesting. She says, I have a theory about the assist we get in life. Only rarely can we repay those people who helped us, but we can pass that help along to others. It's one of our principles that we talk about all the time. But the idea is that one of the things that really hit is that if you think of the time period that she wrote her quotes on what the timestamp is today, I think you'll find this very interesting. She says, you'll be very happy with whatever you do unless you're comfortable with your own conscience. Keep your head up, keep your shoulders back, keep your self-respect, be nice, and be smart. And remember that there is no overnight successes. But the thing that was so funny is that how many times have you heard someone tell you now to keep your head up and keep your shoulders back? That is something that I will never, ever, ever forget that my mother ingrained to me from the time I was born, being 6 foot tall. Sit up straight, pull your shoulders back, stick your chest out, get it together. And that, to hear that in a quote, just shows you the time period of how uniquely different, yet the similarities that we go through life. So thank you for that. That was cool. That was cool. So Tammy Campbell, let's guess yours.
Okay. She's a doctor and very well known in leadership. And I think that one of the things that I like about her the most is that she believes that vulnerability is a strength. I think we're going to see that all these trailblazers, and by the way, Desiree, before I go into it, Tony Wroblewski wrote a book called Trailblazers, and it's a lot of short stories. So you can just read one story, like 2-3 pages on one person at a time. And sometimes you just feel like that, right? I think for people that are here that are not as into books, you can also listen to books now, which didn't used to be, right? And now you can listen to books so that you can have them with you all the time, even just while you're commuting. So you don't feel like, I think a lot of people feel like they're wasting time and they've got to be doing something else. So now you can listen to books while you're on a plane, on a train, in an automobile, and really make a difference by doing that. Podcasts too, almost, having that opportunity to be connected. I was thinking one more. And I think from a trailblazer standpoint, meeting one leader a week for anybody that's paying attention to this and really wants to grow. Nobody goes through life untouched or unscathed. And the most successful people I know have been through a tremendous amount. And that is true of the person that I was recommending as far as the book goes. She talks about having tough conversations and daring to be vulnerable and sharing part of yourself, because the more you share part of yourself, the more other people are going to be willing to share part of themselves too. And you really get a lot more out of yourself and out of others when you put your whole heart into it. So any guesses?
Medical field? Yeah, I have some clues.
Is it medical field? Yeah, that's the same question I just had. I'm sorry, Desiree.
Well, she has her PhD, but she actually studies people.
Ooh,
Ooh.
I have
Ooh.
no idea.
I give up.
Brene Brown.
I was gonna say, was it Brene Brown?
Oh,
I almost said that because she was one that I studied too, Brene Brown. Yeah.
Yeah,
I saw her speak. Oh, she's fantastic.
she is phenomenal.
Dare to
But
read. I love it.
and I love that we're talking about books, because obviously I'm a chronic book readaholic, and there's no 12-step program. I just buy more books. But I think that it's really important for everybody else that we're on the shoulders of giants. And I loved what you just said, Desiree, about Lucille Ball saying that you can't really pay back the people that really steered you in the right direction. And I think back of all those people that had such an impact for me personally, and I'm sure that you guys are doing the same, and you really can't pay them back, but you can pay it forward. And I think that's actually what this group is doing. So I think that's great.
Thank you. So my question to you is, if you don't mind repeating that for not only all the listeners, but myself, what was the name of the book that had the short stories in it?
It's written by Tony Wroblewski, and it's called Trailblazers. Kind of fitting. We're talking about.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Short stories. I got it. Thank you. So, with that being said, with Brene Brown, so Kelly, what really excited you about when you listened to her speak to the story that Tammy just put together, as far as, bringing together of the impact that she brought to the table?
I heard Brene Brown speak at a leadership summit, and I absolutely have the same problem that Tammy has. I need a 12-step program for books because I am constantly buying books. And so I had Brene Brown's book, but I hadn't read it. So I went and saw her speak. And I think what she brings forward in regards to abilities that women have to lead well and effectively. Sometimes, the abilities and some of the qualities that people think show weakness, such as vulnerability, are actually huge strengths when you're a leader. And it was very interesting to listen to Brene talk about those qualities in a different way. Again, many of the leadership books are written by males, and they don't tend to stress some of the qualities that I believe really are essential. And vulnerability is a big one. But so she did an excellent speech on leadership, and I would highly recommend her for anyone. I agree with Tammy.
Well, I can tell you that one of the things that I am very good at getting people to talk openly about things that even their best friend doesn't know about, is the fact is that I expose my vulnerability on how certain things have happened in my life and certain things that most people would never disclose to someone else freely. And then it opens people up to have that conversation. And I'm able to just keep going down the path without feeling obtrusive to them, because I've already exposed myself to the vulnerability who I am. So I love that, what you said, Kelly. So Teresa, go ahead.
Let me add one more thing. Sometimes as leader, just saying, you don't know. I don't know. Can I get some input, right? You're making yourself a little vulnerable because, again, many times people think they have to know everything. You can't know everything these days. You can't. So anyways, I could go on and on.
And
I
do
love her,
too.
Tammy. That's a great.
I agree with you, Kelly and Tammy, and I really like her book as well. And I don't read. I'm like you, Desiree. I do not like reading at all. Zero. It's just not part of my nature. It's too boring to me. I gotta have activity or virtual. It's really difficult for me. And so, but I really do like her. And I think for me, the fact that she talks about, and this is something I fall, and I know a lot of women leaders that I'm exposed to, we all want to be perfectionists. Like, oh, and so we don't get things accomplished because they're not perfect. And I think one of the things that the insight that for me that Brene Brown led was stop trying to be a perfectionist. It's okay that if you let go of those tendencies, you're going to accomplish more things because you can always let something out and then perfect it as it goes. But if you're constantly looking at it and not bringing it out to the forefront, you'll never get anything accomplished. So that for me was my insight with her about stop trying to be a perfectionist, the perfectionist tendencies, because most males don't do that. They, as leaders, they present and then they, get it, perfected after with input. So I love that about that book.
Well,
He actually says strive for excellence, not perfection. And I think
Exactly.
mindset.
Love it, Tammy.
Strive.
That's right.
Awesome.
I love that, Tammy, because that is one of the core things that have prohibited me to bring up my anxiety that I have found, because I am a perfectionist. You know, when I did fashion and modeling and anything I bought or anything, I used to spend hours going through clothing to make sure the seams are correct and everything was just perfect in how it was crafted. And my husband would go, "We're buying it, we're out the door, no more looking, and done, we're done." And the reason I say that is that it stopped me from progressing in what I was doing. So when I got into leadership and started doing things way before the NDILC, I got very nervous. Is that, did I do it right? And it took me time and time. It delayed getting production done. And then when I got to the NDILC level, it became, okay, wait a second. Is it perfect? Is it everything done? No, nothing is worse than doing something. And I had to realize that you do your best at the time of what you have to give and get it out there, because if you've done nothing, then no one can see it and doesn't get done. And as you said, Teresa, build on top of that. So I love that. Anything else you'd like to add to that, Tammy, real quick before we go on to Teresa?
No, I think that I want to hear what Teresa had to say and what book she picked too.
Yeah, okay, so yes, we're down for your guess. So give us 3 clues on who we picked.
On my books. Okay, so I had several books that I thought about that I thought were great, but I'm going to talk about my first one. And this individual has made a huge impact. She is well known and minority, and the biggest impact she did was in her broadcasting career. She came from nothing. Second clue.
Oprah Winfrey.
You got it. You got it. So the book that I really, and what I like about it is that it's called What I Know for Sure. And what I really like about it is that it was a compilation of her Oprah magazine. And you, Desiree, touched it just beautifully about how we're not big readers, right? And you know what? That's the other thing. I think that sometimes people believe if you're not a big reader, you're not a leader, you know, and I think it really helps identify that, you know, you have different areas of focus, right? But she took several of her Oprah magazine areas and compiled this book, okay? Which is, again, What I Know for Sure. And it was different areas that when she started to interview different individuals for the Oprah magazine, that this idea came from to create this book. And she found, you know, what I love about it is that she talks about openly about the weaknesses, like you were talking about Lucille Ball, that she had to air, she fought her fight and struggle with weight, okay? Weight loss, you know, she was a yo-yo, even though she had made it, she still always worried about the perception of others and what they thought about her and not what she thought about herself. So she goes into and talks about loving yourself, right? Understanding that that's important. Gratitude, because there was a lot of times that she was not always grateful for what she had and instead focus on what she didn't have. And so learning to become grateful for what you have is extremely important. And that was one of the things and lessons in that book that she talks about. She also talks about the fact that she struggled so many years with, you know, her own, creating her own vision. And when she realized that what you, it's almost like the concept of what the mind can conceive, you know, you can create. And she became one of those big, you know, supporters of vision boards, right? Of creating that, you know, making sure that what you saw, you could create based on the belief and hard work. So she's from Mississippi, you know, all of these things, I think for me resonate. And here's the best part, everyone. You can find her book on Audible. You can also find her books, and there's several, but she actually wrote this one. Some of them have not been written by her, but she also, this one you can find on Blinkist. So if you have a short attention, you can find Blinkist. You can, you all know what Blinkist is, right? Does everyone know what Blinkist is? It's an app that is an easy app that gives you a 20-minute, it depends on the book. It can do 10 minutes to 20 minutes. And you'll learn the book and read parts of the book and the concept within that time frame. So if you just want to go and get a membership with Blinkist, you can do that annually. It's like $99 a year. And then any book that somebody recommends to you, you can just try it out to see, do I like it? And if I do I want to, hey, I think I really want to read this book further. I love it, because for me, that really helps. And I do more Audible than I do hard books, but that's one that I really love. And that's why I love her. Very
cool. Well, I can tell you with Oprah, if you think about when she was on the networks and she decided to leave to go form her own network, everyone gave her such a hard time that she was not going to be successful. And I remember when she first started it, she had a lot of bumps in the road and there was a lot of issues that went down. And she thought about, quitting and saying that this didn't work. And she put a ton of her money into it. And now look at her, the success of what she did. I mean, she's already obviously exceptionally successful, but she took a lot of grief for it. And then also she took a percentage of the sales when they first started, because she'd never make it. She was never going to be anything shows. They gave her, I can't remember, it was a very large sum of the show. She says, listen, I'll back myself. You won't pay me X amount of money. I just get a percentage of the show. And guess who lost on that one? The network, obviously.
Absolutely, 100% right. And even Harpo Productions, all the things that she's done, if you think about everything that she's been involved with. And I actually got to meet Oprah Winfrey when she was, did I ever share the story with y'all?
Yeah,
we're actually on air, that when she first came, was initiating her show, right? She was well known, but not as well known to everyone. She wasn't mainstream yet. And I worked at ABC television in Little Rock, Arkansas, KTV television. And she came there and it snowed the day prior to her arrival. And in Little Rock, Arkansas, it's very similar to Atlanta, right? The hills, it's really bad if it snows. And so the city shuts down, and we had her flying in. We had a big event. It was going to be, 1,000 people, had to be, we had room, all these things that you do as a broadcasting, and it's a wedding. It was a wedding venue and all this. We had partnered and sponsored. And the lines the morning up were out the door. And it was people of color that had come from all over, from even close states, to see her. And so that's when I first realized this woman is going to be something great, because of, this is prior to influential video, getting on media, having the access of videos that we do today. This was all prior to that. And already she had that fame.
Wow. One thing that I think about when I think about Oprah, because I love Oprah, and I think, again, what a story, right? She's got. But what I realize is, there's a lot of stories out there, and you can learn from all of them. Whether it's someone very, very different from you, who's had a completely different background, or even someone similar to you, male, female, person of color, whatever. There are so many stories, and it really behooves you, right, to take time and look at those stories and glean from them what you can, because it all helps. It all helps.
Well, I mean, look at the call. Look at the diversity on this. Just the four of us right now. Our backgrounds, how we grew, how do we came into leadership, where our structure is, right? But the common thread is the fact is that we've all overcome adversity. We've all had to go through, and we've made the stronger even better by the fact is that we're sharing, we're playing forward and giving that time back. And from logistics to real estate, to finance, to, the sporting arena. I mean, and we're all going back to doing something again that we started before, and we're continue to learn and grow every single day. We've not stopped. And that is the whole thing I think about. What is so powerful about acknowledging Trailblazers is that we're continue to strive to learn to be better and continue our own journey to help others' journeys also. It's a win-win situation. All right, cool. So we're now on to Kelly. 3 clues.
Oh, well, my author is not well known. It's a
Ooh.
female. She's a psychologist and she's an author. That's about it. I mean, so it's a very, to me, this was one of the most important books I have read in my leadership role at UPS. It helped me immensely, and I'll give you more information as to why, but I don't think you're going to guess her. So it's a pretty wide, wide
Okay,
range.
so we've got to have some clues here because you're winning. You've got 2 out of the 3 right. Okay, so you've slayed this. So we've got to figure this out.
I don't know what else to say about her. That she's a psychologist. She studies people. I'm just going to throw the name out there. Have you ever heard of Liz Wiseman? Probably not. See, she's got a book out there called Multipliers. And this book, I would highly recommend if you are in a team environment. When I was at UPS for a long time, you know, you work and you move up, let's just say the corporate ladder. But then at some point, you start actually leading teams. And so those teams may be indirect reporting structures, but you have to inspire those teams and you have to figure out how to get those teams to support each other and to work together. And this book, it's called Multipliers. What it does is it gives you tactical ways to improve getting your teams to work together and to really bring out the strengths of your people so that everyone moves up and everyone succeeds. And it teaches you how to find the ways to make those teams much more successful. And so again, if you're in a situation where you may be managing these teams that are located all over the country, which is what I did, I had groups over 1,200 people that were run by a director and had a managing director. So, you know, you're influencing, you're not having that direct report situation. Boy, this really, really helps.
I love it. Yeah, no, it says it's the whole goal is to make everyone else smarter as you go through the platform because it's all there.
Well, if you think about it, many times in the corporate world, we look at what is someone's weakness. And then we're going to move them to try to get them to work on that weakness. And study after study shows that if you put people where their strengths are, the whole organization succeeds, and they succeed 110%. So you've got to start looking at how do you multiply the effects, right? How do you multiply those effects of your teams and of your strong leaders? And this book, I'm telling you, if you read it, it is a huge, huge help in seeing how to lead more effectively.
And it's on Audible. I just looked it up.
Good. Thank you, Teresa.
If it's on Audible, I will do it.
Yes.
Well, the cool thing about it is it says multipliers are leaders who bring out others' capability and intelligence. They're genius makers who multiply an organization's collective intelligence. Diminizers are leaders who are so absorbed in their own genius that they stifle others. So the idea is that I love that because you think about the corporations that Tammy with, you know, all the territories and the franchises and all the different scales. Same thing with Teresa. And you think about here you are with UPS. I completely understand that because you are a well-oiled machine to make the delivery. And I was just hearing a podcast this morning, prepping for the call to where 15 minutes is going to become the norm of delivery for everything. So if you think about that complexity, Kelly, that your space that you retired from, it's mind-blowing. Oh yeah, you could have groceries, you could have this, you could have that. No longer you get an hour to pick everything. Everything's going to become autonomous. That, you know, in San Francisco, they got autonomous drivers everywhere now. It just mind-blowing to the human elements taking too long to slow things down. So if you don't have good teams, you go back to my upbringing about you're only strong as your weakest link. And
Yep.
to that point of the team that we're talking about is powerful and came out.
You know, Desiree, UPS has over 450,000 employees. So if someone thinks to themselves that they know it all and that they can, you know, somehow get to all these people, you can't. You need to rely on your teams and you need to rely on pulling those strengths out of everyone. And I just think it's so critical in today's world, especially being remote now. So many people are remote. How do you bring the best out of everybody in a remote situation? I think it's just an excellent, excellent book.
Well, you know, I think part of the job of the leader is to create more leaders. And that is your job, right? The best we can do is influence. And so you can't do that with gifts. We're born with a couple of gifts, but we don't have millions of them.
You're breaking up, Tammy.
Yeah, you're breaking up a
You
little.
broke up.
When we're in our lane, right? You know, when you totally own. Can you hear me now?
No.
No, you broke up. So we only heard like a third, maybe a
Yeah,
quarter
you
of what you
got
said. Yeah, your internet's not the best. I could see it on the line.
Today, sorry.
It's okay. So say it again.
We all have special gifts, but we only have a few. And so every one of us knows when we're in our lane. And so we need to recognize other people's lanes, catch them doing something good, and then bring the best out in them, because leaders are supposed to make other leaders, right? That's what we're supposed to do, is create other leaders, not just be there and shining a light on ourselves.
Right. Well, the interesting thing about that is that, you know, you can take this from not big companies, like we're talking 450,000 employees or 300,000 or 100,000. We can take it down to the small businesses. You think about the fact is that I remember when I was scaling my companies to 30 to 50 employees, and I hired one of the best employees I've ever hired. She came as a receptionist. She came in at 7 months pregnant. She hid it so, you know, that she could come and work for someone, because she didn't think anyone would hire her. And then 2 months after hiring her, like, you're doing what? And she ended up becoming my right arm, doing all my sales contracts, doing all my coordination and everything else. I did all the negotiation, obviously, in the real estate side. But the point is that she did all the back end office paperwork, everything. And she ran the entire office at the end of the day of 30 employees. And here she came in as my receptionist, because the fact is I saw the talent in her. So I gave her the ammunition to go and learn and do more. And she worked her tail off to become the leader of the pack. And what's so funny is after she went off to do a few other things and have some more kids, and she came back, the cool thing is that she just came back, I'm going to say about a year ago, and she was applying for a job in the exact kind of lane that she's working for me before, but in a higher scale up the totem pole. And I laughed and I said, she is the best. If you don't hire her, I will figure a way to put her back into my ecosystem, because she was that good, because her dedication to the company. So to your point, Tammy, you're absolutely right. And we have to think about it for all the small businesses that are struggling out there, and all the people who are trying to get with a great resignation to get people to come in. It's like, look at someone to see if they might not be working well, but they have the good attitude, they have the right mindset to help you, and they have the right personality, and they're willing to work. Try to figure out, say, what do you do well? What are you excited about? What motivates you? And see if there's some kind of good fit to actually reskill and retool them to make that work. Because one of the things that's happening right now is we're dealing with a metaverse. Well, what's a metaverse? We're dealing with virtual reality, that, you know, physical space is going to become a different beast, that virtual is going to be everything. Well, the book hasn't been written. There's no one doing education on it. We're all trying to figure out who, what, where, how. So that point is that we have to all, as leaders, rely on people who are dabbling to understand if that's even something we're going to get involved in, or we understand. Because we're back to the internet space of, is this a real thing? Is it not? Are we wasting our time? And I really believe that we have to do things from an open mind, like D&I. We have to do it from an open environment to see if that's something that we could look at, because those bumps are going to be very large, but the rewards are also going to be very important, that we have to go through that process. So I just want to keep the scale of leadership can be from a one person to, 500,000 employees.
Absolutely. It applies everywhere. And I think, again, being able to multiply the effect that you want to achieve is a huge plus in any business of any size. So as you mentioned, being able to find that person, develop their strengths, and have them, again, continue to lead, it makes success very, very sweet. So anyways, I really highly recommend the book, and I'm glad you guys can find it, on Audible and everything. Thanks, Teresa.
Yeah, I like that. It sounds like a great book. I'm definitely going to read it, or listen to it.
Well, I think all right. I love it. I love the idea of listening to it, because I'm now more keen. One of the biggest learning deficiencies I had when I was a child was I couldn't correlate someone speaking to me and what that actually meant to process it. I had to read it. And so the idea is that I've worked so hard to really focus on listening to what people are saying and turn that around. So then within 2 minutes, I can sit there and size up. This is what you need to do. This is where you need to go, how to do it, to scale it, to go with it and get in deeper things. So I really worked hard on that, and it became one of my best traits is to be able to do that. So to your point for audio, think about Clubhouse. Think about the ability to go back to not see someone, not worry about what you're doing, but just have that. You have to intently listen to their voice, their octaves, their what they're talking about, and are they focused and being present in that conversation. So I love the idea of the audiobooks coming back, and they've always been there. But for me to say that I'm now trained that I can listen to a book, where before you can have paid me to go listen to a book of someone reading, I'd go to sleep and say, tune me out, and I'd go there.
Desiree, can I cover my second person, because I really do want to.
Sure, go for it.
Because I thought we would talk about more, but this person, I think, here's my clues. She's Latina. She really was a breakthrough at one of the most controversial movies. It was a Broadway play to begin with, and she is now coming back to play in this Broadway.
Rita Moreno.
That's right, Rita Moreno. So yay, Kelly! I just have to bring her up because
okay, right, Kelly? Seriously?
Rita Moreno, a memoir, and she does a great book, and it's about her life story and about the challenges that she had. I mean, if you read it, it just leaves you in tears. To the diversity that she had, the adversity that she had to face, not just in life, as a poor Latina, right? But also as an actress. And she was and she's still acting today. And the fact that Steven Spielberg has cast her to play back as the shop owner, right? And one of the, for me, West Side Story was the first of many musicals, but it really focused on the culture that I came from. So seeing her play, a Latina play, that role personally, and that now the cast is all Latinos that play from the family part is just an amazing.
I so want to read her book. Oh, yeah. She is amazing, Teresa.
Yeah, amazing. So I just wanted to make sure you got her too, because those are my two that I really wanted.
Well, Rita Moreno, I mean, West Side Story, you think about, to me, who's loves musicals and really loves the ambience of dancing and jiving and having a great time. And when you think of Broadway, you think that we escape the reality to go into the Broadway world, to be able to forget our physical life. We got to go immersed into it. And here we're going into a virtual life that people are trying to think. So having Rita come back and be her in showcase, we still have it at an age. We think about our broadcasters or people who are in the movies, there's not enough parts except very, very few, to play an older character. You had to make the status to be able to play an older character. And for women, they're very, very, very few and far between. So to have that come through today, I think it's powerful, because you think about, there's more women there's more people that are over 65 than there are on the younger generation. So to see us actually on there with all our faults and not being chopped up, sliced up, and gone through that, look at me, is love it. And I can see your I was gonna say, Nellie, go on.
And then also just two things to tie into what Lucille Ball. You know how I love Halloween. One of my first costumes was Lucille Ball when she went to the factory and stuffed her, the chocolates in. So I love her that much. And then when I was in high school at my junior miss, I tried out for junior miss, and I have the worst voice ever, but I don't know what I was thinking, but I did do There's a Place for Us. I sang that, and my husband, Mike, was in the audience. And at the time we had gone on one date, and I always attribute my exposure and West Side Story and the play to him falling in love with me. So I just have to tell you that story.
That's
that is cool.
He thought you were Rita Moreno.
Yes. No, I played actually Maria, but that's okay, because Maria had you know, the exposure, you know, the song, but still, but just the fact that I was brave enough to get up there and do it, because believe me, my voice sucks, but anyway, it was
That's
something.
so cool, Teresa. That's a great story.
Anyway.
Right?
It's a love story.
I love, well, but think about this. So one of the things that, I don't know how many of you know, but Lucille Ball, I know Kelly, you would know. So Lucille Ball was a famous, accomplished singer, but she did not ever sing on I Love Lucy.
Yep.
So the point is that here she, in her own thing, you know, she played Annie Oakley, and here, you know, a phenomenal singer like Rita Moreno. And I mean, you could go down the line, and the people who worked in Hollywood in any capacity had to be multi-talented. They played instruments, they danced, they sang, they did this, they did that. You know, they were the all-encompassing one show act that could go out there and do this.
The other interesting thing about Lucille Ball is, you know, her relationship with Desi Arnaz. First of all, at that time, in that time period, right, to marry a Cuban man, that was, you know,
It
went
was a
way against the
scandal.
norms.
Yeah. To have
And
a
then
baby on.
Yes, and then had a baby, and
he was just a
I mean,
trailblazer, you know.
yes,
to,
yes.
Yeah.
And he was amazing in his own right. Honestly, people don't give Desi Arnaz enough credit for everything
She
he
was
did.
always in love with him too. She never stopped loving him.
I agree. I agree.
Always
They
him.
both were. It was like that. You know, it was
He
like
loved
that.
her too. Yeah, he loved
Yeah,
her.
yeah.
So, oh,
But he did marry, she did marry her second husband for 27 years. So it wasn't that bad.
Doesn't matter. She still loved Desi more.
he always had him in his heart. Anyway,
That's
I know and I love
Okay,
this. Thank you.
so Tammy, you've read how many thousands of books? Can we go 30,000, 40,000?
I read about 300 books a year, so I've read a bunch. It's definitely in the thousands, probably more than 10,000. Yeah.
So you've got to have at least one more, two more.
Well, I actually, you know what? I think one of the things that I actually think like a monk, Jay Shetty, which isn't definitely isn't female, but for getting everybody in this high anxiety space to be calm, cool, and collected, and to make it acceptable to focus on your mental health as well as your physical health. What I'm noticing with leaders now is that you really need to, you know, back in the day, and I can say this because we're the same age, Desiree, back in the day, leaders were beyond chronic workaholics, and usually they had a lot of vices, right? And they looked like they'd been hit by a bus. Honestly, they were in rough physical shape, rough mental shape, but they kept going going and getting the job done. They bragged about how little sleep they got, bragged about all the things that were going wrong in their life. And so having that think like a monk and being in the present tense more, and really concentrating on having your life be circle. I think that's one of the things that women leaders bring to the table, is not just your vulnerability, which is a strength. You know that I'm a martial artist, and so we always say be a lion in uniform and a lamb when out of uniform. And to me, in a leadership role, that means that when you're on the stage, you've got to make a presence and you've got to deliver, or when you're in a meeting and you're the one that's speaking and you've got to deliver, the specific things that you've got to do, when you're in the middle of negotiating and that sort of stuff. But when you're leading other people, you should allow them to be the lion, right? And really focus on bringing the best out in them. And I don't think that you can lead well if you're a basket case in every facet of your life. I think that you really need to be a little bit more well-rounded, be physically fit, be mentally fit. And that's why I liked the book so much.
Well, I got to tell you that the first time, I didn't ever read the book, but the first time I heard him speak was on some social media channel. And I was just so soothed by his voice, on how he communicates and how his ideologies and how he brings it to them, and the fact that he was going to be a monk and he pulled back. But I became addicted to listening to him for a while because of his smoothness. And so, like you said, think like a monk. His delivery is so important, and how time like now, the anxieties, the issues that we're going through, I think his power is in his voice of calming. You know, I just think that you're drawn in by his voice, and then from there, his message and how he frames it, and you never feel, in my opinion, I'm listening to him, I've never felt threatened, because he just makes you think bigger and stronger by opening up your heart and how you embrace things.
And he makes you, he's a very good communicator. And
yeah.
that keeps you in the present tense. And the more you're in the present tense, the more in control of your life you are. And that's really the hardest thing for people, right? Stress is unfinished business, and we're thinking about the past, and anxiety is we're catastrophizing about the future instead of being present here and now. What can I do about it today? And, you know, who can I impact today would probably be a better message, especially where we're talking about trailblazers. You know, who can we impact today?
Well, I love that. The story of bringing together, if you think about what everyone's talking about, we're talking Lucille Ball, and we're talking about Oprah, and we're talking about Rita Moreno. They're on stage. What their presence in their personal life is based is what's on their stage life is. And then you think about where we're changing the trajectory on how are we being real to ourselves? Are we being a facade of something else? And so the idea is that I believe that that state of mind of being present versus forward, and present and future is where that stage life is now evolved. And that is a big deal. I believe that women can project, and we've got to learn. In one of our principles that we talk about is forgetting the past. Like you talk about, we're too much into the past. We're carrying all that burden. Like one of the things that, you know, before we got on this call, the last 3 months, I've had my head just buried into, you know, all the things of moving my office, doing my home, you know, closing out some major things that have been 10 years of my life that have been dragging me down. And I feel just like I'm alive. And that is because I've allowed and had to close out things that need to be done and finalized. And that anxiety has allowed me to open up my heart and say, I have plenty of time. I really don't. But now I have that motion that I can give to other things. So I love that. So, and the other thing, as far as about acknowledging trailblazers, has there been any, in our books that we're highlighting today, has there been anything that you could see or say about that person, how they would handle this 2 years that might've been different, had they been alive, if they're not? Or if they are alive, how they would react differently? Because if you think about it, you know, we've gone these ebbs and flows. You know, we March 2020 happens. Oh yeah, we're kind of this way. And then we go back, we're kind of opening up. And now we're going, well, okay, so now we have something else going. And we're always being challenged. Do we or do we not? We're being polarized by so many different things that are going out there. So as leaders, acknowledging trailblazers, we have so many layers now that we're dealing with in that complexity. So how would your person that you brought to the table to highlight today, have they done anything differently that you know of in the last 2 years? Or would you think of anything they might think about a little bit differently from their point of view versus in ours?
I think that they are reaching out, and we're noticing that a lot, right? Of adaptability. There are people that have not adapted well, and there are people that have adapted incredibly well. You know, I think of the country stars that invited us into their living room to play the guitar and sing a song because they felt like that was the best thing they could do to help everybody in these circumstances, right? Us as a company, we created a stimulus package for our people and reached out to them so that they saw somebody constantly. We taught them meditation, we taught them, you know, Eckhart Tolle, we actually helped them ramp up their business so that they wouldn't skip a beat. I think that Brene Brown reached out to people in different ways, you know, reached out more through social media. I think that created a lot of openings for people reaching out just in a different way than they would have before, because they wanted to make sure that they were still touching people. And I think that good leaders do that. So,
You know, I think you really saw Tammy.
Shetty, same thing. He's done the podcast.
Kelly?
Tammy, I was just going to add to that. I think you really saw that with churches too, right? During the pandemic and how they became virtual very fast and tried to keep supporting people. You know, you mentioned that whole spiritual side, you know, think like a monk and just the need for that spiritual piece. I think that's so important. You know, and I highly recommend whatever your faith is, you know, get into the books of faith, man. The Bible for me is huge and it just helps you, it gives you peace. But I got to throw one other author in because I don't know that Liz Wiseman has done a lot more Audible books, but she may have. I haven't checked them all out. But Malcolm Gladwell, I've read almost every one of his books. He's got a podcast out there called Revisionist History. If you want to broaden your mind and just think of and hear stories that you probably never even knew the facts on, listen to Malcolm Gladwell's Revisionist History. Awesome podcast and read his books. The best one I loved was Outliers. And I thought it was a book, but it really broadens your mind. And I think sometimes during the pandemic and during struggles, we get very narrow and we start to
very much agree. Yes.
Yep. And so broadening your mind and keeping your mind open is so important. So I would highly recommend him.
Awesome. I agree.
Well, to your point, Tammy, Keith Urban, Luke Bryant, Blake Shelton, all those country stars brought us into the homes. And I think the best part to that, which you could do an analogy to what Teresa said, was we don't have to be perfect. We saw them. I was looking at their home going, gee, man, I think they had something else in their home, or, you know, they dressed differently or how they were presented. And it was just raw. And to that, it echoed the excellence versus then the perfection. And you got to see them being human. And I think as a society, that helped us more than anything because we got to see that they were just normal, everyday people doing what they love. And that allowed us to be more. And look at us now, you know, we're in a hotel room, we're sitting in a, can't even have audio perfectly. These things allow us not to worry about the execution. It is what it is. I mean, you got Kelly has children, you know, her grandchildren, they're sick as a dog running around. And I heard them cough. And to me, that brought happiness to me versus then, oh, you know, we need to edit that out. Forget it. This is real. This is life, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. And of course, you all know Rita, and look at her, she's working and got the idea in and all the things that you see in the industry. We have definitely pivoted, and I think it's for the better. And the way we've pivoted, and you see Oprah conducting interviews that no one else can do better, like, you know, with Meghan Markle and, you know, all the different, is that Meghan Markle? That was is that the right last? Yeah. Okay. With all the different, am I thinking of someone else? With all the different stars and all the different areas of focus that she does, and she's really actually, I think, the best at pivoting at anything. So, you know, for me, both of those individuals have done very well today.
Yeah, well, look at Adele. Oprah just did Adele.
Look at her. Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, amazing, right?
Right. And to come out and say that, and we go down Smile Boils. We could go down to all the people talk about what they've had to accomplish on the back end. You know, we're all hinging on it, but they would have never done what they did because the fact that humanity, and that's why, if you think about 5 years ago, I trademarked technology human balance because of the fact that, you know, the Keith Urban's in his home talking about life being real and the struggles that go through it. And yet you sat in his living room and he strummed along his guitar and you got to see that. And to me, it was fantastic. So, oh my gosh, this is awesome. We're getting ready to close. So if you were to have one last quote, and I know we all got to go, one last statement or phrase would you like to say that we could quote you on regarding acknowledging Trailblazers? What would that be?
Don't be a diminisher, be a multiplier.
Ooh.
That's Liz's quote, but I used it.
Tammy, Teresa?
Be true to yourself and you'll be able to lead others.
Be grateful for all that you have, because when you look at those things, you're going to multiply and you're going to realize all the wonderful things that you have in life.
Wow. Okay. Unbelievable, all three of you. So mine is be inspirational and don't let things get you down, because there's always another day to continue the progress and to continue to grow. So that being said,
I love that too, Desiree. And just on yours, you know, Colin Powell, he had a beautiful
Oh.
quote about look at things tomorrow. Things always look better the next day, you know, so
Yeah.
that's beautiful what you said, because I think it's so true, right? If you,
Yeah.
your next day, things always just look different, right? If you just wait, oh, tomorrow's going to be a better day.
Yeah.
So, oh, this is awesome. I love it. I love it. So remember, this is for the entire month of December. So everyone, you have a book. Tammy, this is your chance that you have 30 days that you can post as part of your clips. So every day you can post another book that acknowledges Trailblazers. But this is the time, and we can get the films, we can get the movies. But for right now, thank you from the bottom of my heart. This is all for the month of December. And everyone, please make sure you have beautiful holidays, no matter what your faith is, what you're doing. Be safe, stay healthy, and thank you all. And we'll talk to you next month, and we'll do this again. All right, take care. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.